Hey guys, welcome to my first tutorial. Thanks to all of you for helping me reach 5,000 subs. This first video is simply to get you familiar with Q and the terms I use to describe it. I'll cover the basics like navigation, terminology, as well as importing and exporting. I'll cover lighting of all kinds in future videos. If you're only after a lighting tutorial, I still advise you to watch this video because when I get to the lighting ones, I'll be moving around a lot quicker and this will help you to follow easier. I'm currently using Q 1.15, but this should still be relevant to all versions. First up, I'll explain some of the terminology I'll be using during these videos. Some of you may already be familiar with a lot of this, but I'll go through them all just to be sure. This is a profile. As some of you may recognize, this is the underwater profile, and is still one of my favorites. Profiles can have multiple modes. Modes each have their own settings, assignments, and lighting effects. Background lighting is the simplest form of lighting and can be assigned by highlighting keys and selecting a color from the palette or the color wheel. Simple lighting, or default lighting effects, are those available in simple mode. Defaults provided by Corsair that are easy and simple to use. Foreground lighting effects, or foreground lighting, come in 4 different types: solid, gradient, ripple, and wave. Reactive lighting. This comes in 2 types, ripple or key, and is applied through either the mode menu or the simple lighting. Let's move on to our next topic, navigation. I'll start with the action and lighting tabs, because we won't be using them much. They're both lists that can be sorted with the labels on the left and ordered by clicking the titles of each column. I don't spend much time in either of these and only use them when I need to. Moving on to the settings tab, and this is where you need to come to update your Q as well as your keyboard, mice and headset firmware. If you have problems using one of my profiles, this should be the first thing you do to try and fix the problem. On the program sub-tab are settings to switch between the 16.8 million color and the regular color mode. I do the majority of my editing and all of my recording in the standard mode, as my profiles are usually pretty busy, which can cause some flickering due to the USB bus speed unable to handle so much information. The button to update Q is also on this sub-tab. Other important things to note here are the media priority list, which determines which program takes precedent over another when using media keys, as well as the on-screen display settings. None of my profiles use on-screen display, but if you have profiles that do, here's where you come to change that. The device sub-tab is where you go to update your firmware. You can also disable the device lighting. The support sub-tab is where you go to find your online support, user manual, technical support, and discussion forum buttons that will take you to website links. You can also view your keyboard logs and your system information. Moving on now to the most important, the Profiles tab. You can see the profile list, which you can scroll through and select which one you want to edit, change, etc. Next to the profile list is the Profile Options drop-down menu, which allows you to edit, delete and duplicate the profile, as well as set it to default, save to memory and export. Underneath the profile menu is the mode list. Right now, there is only one mode, but we can add more. Each mode also has an options menu that allows us to edit, delete, and duplicate the mode. You'll notice the 3 sub-tabs. First, I want to talk about assignment, which is where you go to edit your macros and actions. You can also set keys to switch between profiles and modes. I might cover macros in a later tutorial, but because I don't use them very often, I'm not the most qualified to do so. Skipping over lighting for a second, let's go to the performance sub-tab now. This is where you decide what the Windows lock key disables. By default, it's just the Windows key, but you can also set it to Alt-Tab, Alt-F4 and Shift-Tab. Now we come to the lighting sub-tab. You notice that we're currently in the standard mode, and this is the default for when you create a new profile. To switch to advanced, simply hit the button in the bottom right corner. You'll notice that the background lighting color palette is at the bottom, as well as a brightness setting, which can also be changed by using the brightness button on your keyboard. We'll cover more about the lighting tab in other tutorials. To switch profiles, you have to use the icon in the system tray. Right click on it and it'll bring up your list of profiles to choose from. Let's move on to our next and last topic for this video, importing and exporting. There are multiple file types that Q uses, but for now let's keep it to the basics. The main file types you'll be interacting with is Q's profile file. This has the extension of .prf. We'll first cover importing because it's been heavily requested. So if you've downloaded a profile of mine before, chances are you've already had to deal with this. But to help those struggling, I'll give a complete rundown. When you download my profiles, they'll either come as a .zip or a .prf. If you've downloaded the .zip, it will need to be extracted first using a program like 7-zip or WinZip. Once you have the PRF file, open up Q and go to the Profiles tab. It's important to note that the other tabs also have import buttons, but only the Profile tab will allow you to import the PRF. When you're importing a profile, there's a possibility that the profile uses some of the existing effects in the library. If this occurs, a window will pop up and ask you if you'd like to update or add as new. Adding as new creates a new version of that effect, which can be changed without affecting the original. Updating will use the information that's provided in the PRF to rewrite that effect. If you see this message on one of my profiles, updating won't affect any of your others, as I make sure not to change any of my previous lighting effects. Exporting your profile is an extremely simple process. Go to the Profile tab, use the Profile drop-down menu and select Export. A file browser window will pop up and ask you where you'd like to save the PRF. The same goes for exporting any other Q file type. So that concludes my first tutorial. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope this helps you to understand more of the basics about the program.